Hello, Aurox Nation. Today I'm joined by Alex. He is the co-founder of IDEX, and we're going to be talking about some upcoming products that he's going to be showing off. But for now, how are you doing, Alex? How's crypto market been treating you?
I'm doing pretty well. This is probably one of the most interesting weeks in crypto that I can remember in a long time. Drama everywhere. So, some of it a good look, some not so much, but it's never a boring time here, right?
Yeah, I mean, with all these meme tokens and stuff coming out of nowhere, trying to steal the liquidity from everything else. But it looks like the market's kind of swinging back around. Hopefully, everyone else is doing better than they were a couple of days ago. But let's kind of talk about who you are. Where you started getting into cryptocurrency. Just kind of give us a background about yourself.
Sure. So my background's primarily in software, mostly product management roles. So I've been working in some form of software for over a decade now. This time at IBM and most recently at Amazon. In terms of crypto, I think I first heard about it in 2012. There was a Wired article, The Rise and Fall of Bitcoin, up to $28 and back down to $2. I bought a little bit, like a lot of people, and then kind of forgot about it for a little while, but it goes up in value and you start to pay attention a little bit more closely. There's a phrase, I forget who said it, but it was come for the money and stay for the money. And it sounds kind of stupid, but it's, the point is you come for the speculation and then you dig in further and you realize actually there's a whole lot of innovation here. And it's a much deeper than it seems on the surface in terms of the implications of the cryptocurrency space. So really started jumping in with the launch of Ethereum. That I think got a lot of people who are working software to just start thinking bigger in terms of what this could mean in terms of applications that aren't controlled by any one individual party, custody of assets that is decentralized, but users can still interact with and trade with one another, borrow, lend, etc. Really, it's amazing looking at some of the early presentations from Vitalik. He nailed like half of the current use cases that are really big right now on Ethereum. So kudos to him for having the foresight and seeing where this technology could go. So we tried a few different things and then launched IDEX in the fall of 2017 and found great product traction with that and been working on it full time ever since.
Nice. And you said you come from like software development background. Do you actually develop? Do you still develop, or do you develop? If so, can you explain that?
My roles were primarily product management. I did, it was, looking back, I think I would have really enjoyed being a developer. By the time I realized that, I was 5 years into my career and figured, at this point I'd be graduating to managing teams, and so kind of looked at the product side instead as an area to be close to the development team, speak their language, but be that translator and liaison between customer and the team that's building the product. So that's really where I found my niche at the previous companies I mentioned.
Oh, nice. So I guess let's dive in and kind of explain what IDEX does and what you guys are doing now. I mean, we've heard of IDEX from back in the day, and we've kind of kept tabs with you guys. So it's, and I know you guys had an announcement recently about some upcoming products. So can we discuss what you guys have been playing?
Sure. So right now, IDEX is what we call a high-performance decentralized exchange. It's bringing together the UX of a centralized exchange, so the matching engine, order books, kind of the high-performance trading experience you'd expect from a Binance or a FTX, and combining that with smart contracts so that everyone can be their own custodian. So you get that user experience of a top-tier centralized exchange, but without having to give up custody of your funds.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So it's been interesting to watch, if your viewers are familiar with decentralized exchanges, really order book dexes have taken a back seat to AMMs over the past couple of years. It's something that we've really seen just become kind of an obvious signal from the market. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. Primarily that AMMs make it really easy to bootstrap a new product, a new token.
Yeah.
You have a pool that can be deployed by anyone, and users can easily deposit funds, and there's no need for an external market maker. So we've been looking at, for the next iteration of our product, how do we bring together the best of centralized and order book exchanges with the best of AMMs and liquidity pools. And that's the announcement that we recently made. It's a product that'll be coming out in a couple of months from now that we're calling IDEX Hybrid Liquidity. And it does just that. It marries the order book matching engine, kind of instant execution of a traditional exchange with the liquidity pools of an AMM.
And how does that work exactly? I mean, one of the things that you guys are solving is the slippage and front running and whatnot. But I mean, if it's all on chain, wouldn't you still have those issues? Do you know that? I guess the technical aspects of how do you prevent those items, those major problems with Uniswap and some of these other dexes?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with trading on AMMs, you've probably had the experience where you go to the swap interface, you're presented like an estimate price, and then you submit the transaction and you kind of just wait. And in that time, a whole host of things can go wrong, right? Your slippage settings can be too tight and the transaction can fail, or they can be too loose and someone can front run you. You can have the gas on the network just spikes up in between the time that you submitted it and it's waiting for settlement. And so now you're at the back of the queue, spending hours trying to get the transaction through. All that happens because users are submitting those transactions directly to the mining network. We address that by first routing transactions through our matching engine. So you can think of it like when you're trading on something like FTX, you don't ever have a trade fail, right? Or like, your slippage settings were too tight, so it got reverted. Like those are foreign concepts in a traditional exchange environment. So it's really about bringing together that element of exchanges with the non-custodial, decentralized nature of self-custody and liquidity pools. So to give a concrete example, if you're trading on the IDEX Hybrid Liquidity, you can do so via both a swap interface, in which case you'll see like the estimated price. And as soon as you click buy or sell, that transaction will immediately execute. And then behind the scenes, it's being submitted to the network for settlement by one kind of unified system. So that system's able to sequence all the transactions, make sure that users don't run into one another, that other users can't front run you while your trade's waiting to settle. It really removes a lot of the kind of goofy elements of the UX. The other really cool thing that we're able to do is we actually take that curve and the term is quantize, but it basically means to break up that curve and present it as orders on the order book. Now, it doesn't mean that you're actually trading against individual orders. You're still trading against a curve, but it's able to then mix in with traditional limit orders. So you get presented this nice visual of what is the depth of the pool. You get things like charts, order book depth, as well as the ability to place limit orders, stop loss, all of the traditional functionality that you'd want on a regular exchange, but now interacting with a liquidity pool. So it not only addresses these AMM problems, but also kind of supercharges it with a lot of the features that are only found on traditional exchanges.
And as far as the liquidity goes, how does it tap into the liquidity? Is it liquidity that's on your chain or on your token or on your servers, or is it liquidity that you're going to be tapping into on Uniswap and other decentralized exchanges?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's going to be its own pool of liquidity to start. That's kind of the next phase, is looking at how to pull from outside liquidity sources. The challenge there is that in order to be certain about what you're going to get when you give that user a trade and you execute that trade, it needs to be able to guarantee the sequence of transactions. So it needs to be, at least for the first pass, it's going to be this more closed system. In terms of liquidity pools. So we'll be having our own liquidity mining program to help bootstrap those pools. We'll also be working with project teams, because we think that's another angle that I think is going to be really appealing. We've talked to a few teams, and if you think about the life of a project, It typically starts on an AMM kind of open liquidity
Yep.
pool DEX, and then the goal is to graduate to something that has order books and a more sophisticated trading style. And there's a lot of traders that say, look, I don't want to deal with those swaps. I'll trade it once it gets on these other platforms. Yep. So we see this as being a unified system. You can easily bootstrap it with liquidity pools, but it also has the order book side so that you can bring in more traditional market makers, more advanced traders, et cetera, and kind of grow all within one ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's a good. I mean, that's incredible, because that's kind of the issue that our own users have, is utilizing Uniswap and PancakeSwap and whatnot, because it's just not easy to do. Compared to centralized exchanges, the amount of users that Binance has, comparing that to Uniswap, it's on a whole different level. I mean, Uniswap does have a lot of volume, but it's being done by a select few, a very small percentage of traders out there. So I think having that ability to have more of a centralized feel to the system while also giving them a decentralized trading environment is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty stoked, right? It's obviously a hot topic. AMMs are growing, but they still have these kind of teething issues. So everyone's trying to figure out what does the future of AMM and order book look like? And there was a couple of months ago, like a week-long Twitter debate between different parties, right? The AMM crowd versus the order book crowd. So we're excited to bring them together because we think we've got something pretty unique here.
Yeah, it definitely is. How far are you guys in development right now? Is there a timeline that was announced, or is it just kind of testing right now and pushing out later this year?
Yeah, good question. So we're aiming for the end of Q2. Okay. Right now we have.
That's very soon.
Yeah, we're pretty optimistic. I think one part that might come down to is just the audits. Some of the audit backlogs. And I don't know if you've heard, it's difficult squeezing in. So that's one area that might slip. But we've got at this point pretty much the entire set of smart contracts are written. You can really think of it as 3 different buckets. You've got the smart contracts which custody funds and now need to be able to settle limit order trades against a liquidity pool. So a user needs to be able to say, like, I want to sell 10 ETH for no cheaper than 4,000 USDT, and that needs to settle against a liquidity pool. We have simultaneous settlement of a limit order versus both a limit order and a liquidity pool. So if there's other orders on the books, your order can hit both of those, which is another thing that's really important to making this feel seamless. And then some upgrades to the way we kind of optimize the contracts for gas purposes. So that's one big bucket. The second big bucket is the off-chain matching engine and API. So again, users need to be able to submit an order and have the matching engine understand and route the user to best price execution, whether that's the pool, another limit order, or some combination of the two. And then we have to have the API that can feed all of that information to people building trading bots or using things like Aurox, right? So that they can understand what's going on the order book / pool. What's the whole kind of topology of liquidity. And then the last piece is the UI. So upgrading the UI to include that information from the liquidity pool, as well as a swap interface for those who don't want to necessarily worry themselves about the details, still just want to do that simple market order swap that's become pretty popular.
That's pretty cool. So you said with the liquidity pools, that's going to be a closed system. Is that, since you're processing it on your servers, is KYC an issue that you foresee? I don't know how the legal aspect of this will happen. With the one aspect of decentralized exchanges is people you just connect up your wallet and you're ready to go. So how does that look with IDEX and this new product?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's actually something we're actively reviewing because this design is a little different than some of the other DEXs. The key things are it's non-custodial, right? No matter what happens with the off-chain system, we can't take anyone's funds. You can always get your funds back. And the provision, like the providing of liquidity as an LP, is done entirely via on-chain transactions. So that part we know will be open. So if you just want to be a liquidity provider, you'll be able to show up, throw some funds in the pool. And then as volume grows, you'll start to make those trading fees. That also allows for liquidity mining programs with either IDEX token or other projects that we want to partner with. In terms of the exchange side, TBD on whether or not we'll need users to have an account there.
Yeah, I understand all the legal issues with it. It's a headache because there's no set regulation anywhere. It just kind of like it might be legal, it might not, and you kind of have to go with it.
Yeah, it's tough, and no one can really speak publicly about the advice they're getting, right? So
exactly,
people are kind of just looking around and trying to see what other people are doing as well. So we're trying to make the product as appealing as possible. I'll put it that way.
And as far as listing tokens, you mentioned there's initially some projects are going to be, you guys are going to help them get listed on IDEX, but is it going to be kind of open to whoever wants to provide liquidity, or is it initially just going to be closed off and then eventually you will make it open to anyone to list their tokens and provide liquidity, like on Uniswap, for example?
Yeah, so this is a pretty cool part. So to start, there's going to be two parts of the exchange, if you will. There's an open swap side, which operates pretty much exactly like the existing AMMs, meaning anyone can deploy a liquidity pool, and that liquidity pool is accessible by others on the network. Anyone can see that pool and trade against it. That's how pools will start. Yeah. So projects will need to deploy a pool, get some liquidity, get some volume. Those will be then upgraded and integrated with the hybrid liquidity system. So that allows us to let anyone, a big factor that we think was the rise of some of the AMMs was there was no gatekeeper to getting the liquidity pool off the ground, right? Like we don't want teams to have to come and talk to us before they launch their liquidity pool. But there's a benefit to doing so on IDEX because you launch a liquidity pool on IDEX, and if you're able to get volume and traction, talk to us, we'll be able to then integrate it with the hybrid liquidity side. Now, long term, we'd love to have that be entirely decentralized, the integration. It's a little trickier given some of the design of the system. So that's kind of a whole another lift of kind of tech development. But obviously, that's the long-term goal is something that's pretty much independent from us from an operations perspective.
I mean, even given the ability to upgrade is, I think, good enough, because getting listed on Uniswap, you see that, first few days or first few weeks go well, and then you have to struggle to, speak with these exchanges and stuff and get that upgrade, I guess, in a way, to a centralized exchange. So having that option, I think, is going to be beneficial for a lot of companies to deploy on IDEX and hopefully get upgraded based on volume and user base.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's more we just if it's Saturday evening and you're trying to launch your product, go for it. We'll talk on Monday morning, kind of thing. So
yeah, what else are you guys doing? Is this been your main focus, or are you guys doing other items, or do you have anything planned in the future?
Yeah, so we have one other major initiative that we've actually reprioritized at the moment. So the other major initiative is a layer 2 network that's specific to our design. And there's been, I guess, no shortage of kind of conversations or debates around layer 2 scaling. I think what we're seeing right now is there's a lot of interesting options in the market for scalability, whether that's other layer 1s. So Binance Smart Chain. Yeah. I see the question right now.
That's why I pulled it up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually launched the existing version of IDEX on Binance Smart Chain in February, which was a pretty telling kind of signal to us in terms of it got a fair bit of traction, but frankly, not the level that we had hoped or been expecting, given the lower transaction fees that are on BSC, which is what really had us reflecting on what's making other DEXs so successful. And we think it's a couple of those key components that I mentioned earlier. So we still have that layer 2 network as something that we're going to continue developing, but our focus right now is what we think is this more exciting option, which is how can we address some of the AMM issues while at the same time bringing to market a new type of product that just fundamentally doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, I mean, Binance Chain and lower fees are fine, but again, it's still difficult for most users to use Pancake Swap and Uniswap and whatever other layer 2 swap system there is. You're getting lower fees, but you're sacrificing the usability of it. And I mean, the product that you're describing is pretty great. I'm hoping that we'll take part in it soon.
Absolutely.
But Nick, to answer your question, we are actually, now that we're talking about it, we definitely be looking to integrate them. Their product does sound very interesting, and I think it's going to bring a lot of usability to our users. And honestly, Alex, that's basically what we're trying to do, is trying to bridge that usability gap that exists between these exchanges. Obviously, our method is different, but I think the overall goal is kind of similar.
Yeah, that's critical. You might be interested. We spent a lot of time with our API benchmarking what was working out there in terms of centralized exchanges. And as you probably know, there's like an unofficial standard that has kind of developed, and it makes sense. Like if you're launching a new platform, you want to comply with the existing kind of format and standard that is already out there, because then it makes it as easy as possible for companies like yours to add support. Yeah. And so we did a lot of work there with the API, making it both kind of a familiar format as well as, excuse me, the performance that you'd come to expect from those platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you the headache that we've had dealing with Uniswap's APIs, and we're actually adding like the order form for to people to trade on decentralized exchanges, and it's just a headache. It's, I mean, the graph has been amazing and everything, but compared to actual, more centralized method of API interaction, it's it's not there yet.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm sure you probably ran into this. Like I was talking to some market makers in DeFi, and it's almost a different game than the market making game on centralized exchanges, right? Like the game on centralized exchanges is get connected, as close to possible as the API, with the API, so that you can have low latency, be the fastest in the market, be the most knowledgeable. On decentralized exchanges, yes, there's an element of latency and understanding what transactions are pending, but there's also this game of pricing your transaction appropriately so that it can get mined, but without overpaying for the transaction. There was a great analogy someone made that it's more akin to ad auctions, if you're familiar with how those work. Like on YouTube, there's like a half second where a bunch of these systems are bidding on the right to show you an ad based on everything they know about you as an individual. And you basically have this equation, like, I think it's going to be worth this much to show this person an ad, and you kind of escalate your bid accordingly. And that's how a lot of it works on Ethereum with a lot of these more sophisticated arbitrage trades, is they think, okay, I'm going to make this much if I win this transaction, so I'll be willing to bid that much. But obviously you don't want to go straight to your max bid, because then you're giving all the profit away to miners. So it's a totally different game, and I think we're excited to bring some things that there's obviously a lot of infrastructure built around the traditional API exchange model, and we're really excited by the idea that we can tap into that but bring it to this decentralized space.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I have one. It's a side topic, but I think it might be interesting for everyone. The ad bidding type of situation that's going on the Ethereum chain. When we were first launching on our own token, one of the issues that we were trying to figure out was with bots and how they worked in order to prevent them. And we came across like a few articles about exploits that were found in other people's smart contracts. And there was a entire article where the developer of his own smart contract found a bug in his code, and like $10 or $20 million was at stake. But the problem was he couldn't execute the bug in order to withdraw the liquidity, because as soon as a bot would see this transaction go through, and apparently there's bots that are capitalizing on these exploits, as soon as he pushed out his own exploit in order to pull the liquidity and save people's funds, he knew a bot would come in and execute that trade before him by bidding up 10, 20 times his amount and stealing millions of dollars. And it was maybe I'll post the article later, but basically he had to call a bunch of people at 3 a.m. and try to figure out how to do it. He had to call miners in order to incentivize them to not take the hacker's transaction, and it was insane. I mean, the amount of stuff that's going on chain is just way different than what you're used to on centralized systems.
Yeah, I love that article. I think it was called "Ethereum is a Dark Forest," and I
Yes, that's
remember the
exactly, yeah.
title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the title. So if you haven't checked out if you're into sci-fi at all, there's this book series called The Three Body Problem, and the title of the article is borrowed from that book. The concept is that the universe itself is a dark forest. The idea being that as soon as other alien life gets word that there's some sort of sentient life form in any part of the galaxy or any part of the universe, they're incentivized to immediately destroy it because they don't know what it is, and it could be powerful enough that it could destroy them. And so the whole concept is that like you actually want to hide your presence in the universe from other beings, because if they simply know about your existence, then you're gone. And so it's that same analogy of the bot, right? That is, if they know about the existence of this transaction, then you're not going to be able to get it through because they'll beat you to the punch because they're sophisticated enough to pick it off.
Yeah, I mean, after I read that article, I went through like a wormhole. Like, how are these even, like, I understand like front running a transaction in order to like, scalp some money off Uniswap, but to be able to detect an exploit that's happening and then execute the same exact transaction in order to steal money, it was just beyond me. It was a very interesting article.
Yeah, I think the idea is that they'll actually just look at what code is being run,
Yeah.
right, by a pending transaction, run it themselves, and then be like, "Holy crap, this generates $10 million! Like, I'm gonna do this same code, right?" Like that. So it's a
Okay, that
kind
makes
of a
more sense.
meta.
Yeah.
It's a meta bot, right?
Yeah.
It just runs whatever's pending and looks for ones that will give it a bunch of money instead, and then we'll try to jump in front of you. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's why you're going through the process of auditing, and even though auditing, can not, it's been kind of shown at times to not work properly. But I imagine your developers are, unit testing and everything, and going over the tests or going over the code every single day to make sure there's no problems.
Yeah, of course. That was, we've got of our development team, 5 of them are experts at smart contracts, either building our previous products or we would audit tokens to make sure that they worked with our systems. So we've seen a whole host of good and bad contract design, if you will. But yeah, I mean, the reality is audits are not perfect. That's why people do bug bounties, external auditors, and I think it's interesting to see all this stuff being built kind of on top of each other and real time, because people ask, well, how do you know the code is secure? And ultimately you get people to look at it, but it's ultimately just time and market. That's how do you know Bitcoin's secure? It's like, well, it's been around for 11 years now. Pretty good chance anything, it's got $1 trillion bug bounty. But there were things in the past that, they either had to, I can't remember the specific details, but things that were patched or things that, were upgraded secretively that, could have been catastrophic. And so it's ultimately just time and people taking a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never know, and everything can be hacked, and then especially when you have 200,000 people or 500,000 people in crypto that are looking at your code. Some of them can find something that's that someone else can't discover. But going through that process of auditing, make sure your developers are looking over, I think is the best you can do to make sure that everyone's funds are safe.
Yeah, we work with QuantStamp, which they have a pretty solid team. We've been pretty pleased with the work that they've done. So, we're trying our best.
As far as the bug bounty, I know you mentioned it. Is that something you guys are planning on doing, or no?
Yeah, we'll have a bug bounty on the contracts, TBD amounts and that sort of stuff, but it'll look similar to other bug bounties that other projects have had. I think the goal is to have honest disclosure and reward people that do the right thing rather than exploit it. Though we've received numerous messages on Telegram about people claiming to find exploits. They're never true. The latest one was someone who claimed to find an issue with our API. And then he was like, "Oh, I think I just triggered it accidentally right when a DDoS attack started." And so we're like, "Okay, I'm going to block this guy, and we're going to go fight this DDoS attack instead." So,
I mean, that's insane too. Before we had, our token and everything, it was we weren't really getting a lot of these, I guess, scammers in a way hitting us up. But as soon as you have your own token, or as soon as you have users' funds, it's every single day, like 10. I mean, I imagine it's worse for y'all because you guys have a way bigger community than we do. So I can't imagine how many people you guys get messages from.
Yeah, we actually had to we turned off our Telegram for a while. It got so bad, and moved everything to Discord where we can moderate things a little bit better. And we've turned Telegram back on. But when you join, it's like you have to click a button that's confirms, like, I'm not going to reply to any DMs. Like, we will never DM you. Anyone who does is a scammer. Like, if you ask for help, we have an auto reply that says we will never DM you. Come to our website for help. So we do everything we can to let users know that, like, this is not, Telegram is a dark forest. If you let people know that you need help, you're gonna have a bad time.
And they just clone your accounts over and over again. You ban one, and there's like 20 more that spring up. I think Nick had a question. How much traffic were they using against you to DDoS?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. It was enough that we had to go in and upgrade the system that we were using. We had the whatever like base protection is, and things scaled up appropriately. We had like some of the auto scaling things that would either alert us and we would spin up other instances that could take some of the load. But yeah, they stopped. I mean, it was more expensive for them to continue once we blocked them on Telegram. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good part about having a decentralized system too, is, people can't really DOS you. I mean, they could potentially flood your Ethereum network, but that's going to be a lot more costly than they're going to make from it.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. Like, they can take down our UI and the IDEX side, but if that happens, users can always get their funds out of the contract, right? Yeah. So that's, and especially it's interesting in like 2018, 2019, there was a lot of talk of like, well, DEXs, the self-custody is only one component. There's a lot more to it. Self-custody is maybe not that important even. I agree it's only one component, but I disagree that, the ability to have a decentralized custody network is not extremely important. And just, the recent example being the exchange in Turkey, at least last I heard, that ran off with $2 billion of customers' deposits. And so for us, the way I view it is not everybody's going to want to self-custody. Like, that doesn't seem like a likely future, but you should have choice of custodian. So if you want to use a hardware wallet, MetaMask, something that you control, that should be able to interface with a professional third-party custodian that banks and professional trading firms will be working with. The idea that everyone needs to deposit into one central custody solution in order to trade with one another, it's kind of at odds with some of the goals and design principles of cryptocurrency in the first place. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like you have both users that want a hold of their funds, and then you have users that just don't care. So giving them both options is very beneficial. And I think that's kind of what Binance is trying to do with their own chain too, just giving users both options. But they still have some issues with their decentralized exchange, or I wouldn't decentralize the exchange, I guess, in a way. But yeah, that's it all sounds good. Is there anything else you wanted to mention? I know you guys have trading competitions that you're planning on doing. Is that coming up soon after the launch, or how does that work? Or how can
so we did one a couple weeks ago. I was pretty successful. So would definitely love to clue in your community next time we have one. We'll be doing quite a bit of promotion and activity around the launch of the new version. And it's going to consist of a few things. So there'll be liquidity mining on some of the top pools that we're working to get deep liquidity around. We'll have some trading competitions to bring the maker side and encourage people to interface with this liquidity. And we'll also be setting up a referral program that will be like your traditional referral program, allow people to earn a percentage of the fees from those that they bring to the platform. So it's interesting that a lot of the DEXs, you haven't seen some of the kind of go-to-market innovation around things to attract traders. So I think we're going to be able to bring a lot to the table with this launch. So we're pretty excited about it.
And sorry, there was something I forgot to mention. Oh, I guess it slipped my mind. Sorry. Just got stuck in my mind. Okay. If anyone has any questions, feel free to let us know. We'll probably wrap it up here in a minute, unless I can think of anything, or unless you wanted to add something else, Alex.
No, nothing else from my end. If you're curious to learn more, check us out on Twitter at IDEX.io. We have a Telegram and Discord room. You can find the links on our profile. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I enjoyed the conversation.
Actually, I just remembered.
All right.
So, how does the fee structure work? How are you guys, generating money from the revenue or from the trading?
Yeah. So right now the fee structure is 10 basis points on the maker, 20 basis points on the taker. Okay. We're going to be changing that slightly with the launch of liquidity pools, because one of the key kind of, I guess, functionality that makes liquidity pools work is the fee. Part of the fee from the taker goes to the liquidity pool. It's like a maker rebate, right? Yeah. And that's how those passive LPs are able to make money over time. It's because they have essentially a spread of zero, but they get a maker rebate in the form of those fees. So we'll be redoing the fee structure, but it will look similar on the taker side. Makers, TBD, just depends on how it's going to work with those LPs as well.
Okay. And since you guys are going to have an API, and I also saw the Hummingbot support, does that mean potential users would be able to auto trade and use algorithms in order to execute trades? I know it's kind of possible on decentralized exchanges in a way now, but it requires a lot more work than it does.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, and something I should have mentioned. So one of the things that we're really excited about is the increase for arbitrage opportunities against this liquidity pool. So that's what drives a lot of the volume in these pools and fees for LPs, and why people are staking is the pool itself. The price doesn't update until someone trades against it. Now, the interesting thing is, because you normally have to submit a transaction to the network, wait for that transaction to mine, there's some execution risk in taking against the pool, which means that prices generally have to deviate a little bit further from where it would be profitable if you're just looking strictly at the fee structure. In our system, that's not going to be the case, because you're going to be able to get that instant guaranteed execution against the liquidity pool. And then we've got things like fill or kill, so you can even protect yourself if your trade isn't able to execute at the price that you want. You're not stuck in a position that you don't want to have. So that's an area that we're actually pretty excited about, talking with a few different firms. And if you're interested, please definitely reach out, because we'd love to work with some people to get them up and running and show them some of the possibilities that'll be there.
Yeah, no, that's actually really cool, and I think something that we'll be interested in. It's a lot of people are trading using auto traders. I mean, 3Commas is huge. There's a few other companies out there, and unfortunately, that's not something that can be done on decentralized exchanges right now. And there's a lot of volume and a lot of arbitrage that can be done if you know how to do it.
Right. Awesome.
Okay. I think Nick had another question, and then we'll wrap up after that. Will the people staking benefit by the hybrid liquidity pools and new futures?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Nick's asking about is the IDEX staking system. The quick summary is users can stake our token, the IDEX token, help run some of the infrastructure via an IDEX staking node, and get paid 50% of the trade fees for doing so.
Oh, really? So awesome.
Yeah, the model's pretty simple, right? It's all about growing volume, and that's the goal here with this new product. So if we're successful, certainly it'll be beneficial to the staking network.
So the profits basically translate into go back to the stakers and the token holders.
Yep, exactly right.
Okay, nice. All right. If anyone else has any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, Alex, thanks for coming on and talking about your project. We really appreciate it. We'll send out, if you have any tweets and updates, definitely tweet it, and we'll retweet it and share it with our user base as well.
All right. Anyways, sounds great.
Thanks for coming on board and talking about your project.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. See you, everyone.